liking the whole little comment section on there. So we'll see. We'll see. We'll put my phone there so I can see comments as they come up. And I think we're good. Because see, then I can make the video the full screen and I don't have to worry about the comments below. Awesome. Okay. So those of you that are new, welcome to the group. We're excited to have you here. We do these live trainings every Tuesday, 11 o'clock Eastern, and we cover different topics. Today we're talking about your audience and really kind of knowing who they are, how you resonate with them. Good morning, Dorothea. And what we can do to make your messaging land and stick. And that really starts with understanding who you're talking to more than just the demographics. And we will touch on the demographics, but we're going to kind of dive into a little bit more than that. So, and remember, this is interactive. So if you've got questions, if you've got comments, drop them in the comments. The downside of doing Facebook Live trainings is exactly, I don't like to be talking heads where I'm just the only one talking. I like it to be really interactive. So what you're going to find over the next several months is, see, you can barely hear me. I don't understand. See, that must be the Facebook thing. But I don't know how to change the mic. Weird. Okay, so do I need to get closer to my computer maybe? I don't want to really be like this huge head. So like, Kelly, let me know if you guys can hear me better. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Is that better? Maybe I had my computer too far away. Okay, anyways, we'll figure it out. So yeah, so that's the downside of doing the Facebook Live trainings is because it is very one way and there's that delay. And you're going to find over the next few months, we're going to, do you want us to use our cameras? Do you want our cameras? Maybe we can totally play with that today. I'm open. I'm always open to trying new things. So we're going to run with it. It's better. My volume is maxed out. Okay. Well, as long as you're not using like earbuds and we're going to burst your eardrums. We don't want that. So, because inside of the women's resource community, when we use the Zoom trainings, then you guys are actually on camera and you're able to interact face to face, and it becomes a much better training, and we can do a lot more in that environment. And so I've kind of realized that that's what you guys really need. Is you need more of that interaction. So kind of watch for those smaller changes coming up in the next 2 or 3 months, where we'll do some high-level trainings still here in the Facebook group, but deeper trainings inside of the women's resource community. And still be free for those that join us. But just so you know, we're going to kind of start doing those switch-ups this year. Okay, for those that don't know me, I have been doing coaching for almost 19 years. I'm a holistic coach. So that means I'm a Reiki master teacher and I'm a cranial psychotherapist. So I integrate that mind, body, spirit into our sessions, and everything that we do kind of goes through those 3 pillars to ensure that we're taking all of you, not just the business mind you, into consideration when you're creating strategies and solutions for your business. So that's my unique piece of it. For, they consider me one of the pioneers. Good morning, Jane Ann. And of the holistic coaching industry, because when I started, nobody else was doing it. I spent 96% of my time educating people what Reiki was, what cranial sacral was, and how they actually work together when we are working on our business and in our business. So that's kind of who I am. So the next 30 minutes, we're going to talk about your ideal customer. We're going to try and, speak their language, decode who they are and their behavior. And we're going to start with that audience reach, which we're going to tap into the demographic piece. But then we are going to be looking at how to personalize it and what their behavior is. So if you are watching the replay, because we do end up getting more people watching the replay, make sure you comment #replay. So then that way I get notified that you've been watching it. And if you have questions, I should get those notifications too when you comment. So Audience research, let's start there. How many of you, if I had to ask you, how many of you have actually done that deeper dive into knowing your audience? Do you know them inside and out? What are your thoughts? Where have you been on a scale of 1 to 10? Like 1, you're like, I'm just starting, I'm just trying to identify who my client is, who my customers are, or I've been at this for years, I know exactly who my customer is. Where do you think you are with your customers and knowing them? And that can include like knowing the demographics, knowing their behaviors already. You kind of know where they hang out. So, right, because we know the demographics include those basic statistics like gender, their interest, or their values, their lifestyle, right? So we target women entrepreneurs, right? And those that are watching, good morning, Cindy, those that are, see, I'm watching and then I'm watching, right? So I'm going to say that word more than once, right? So those that are looking for that work-life balance, how do you describe your audience? So yeah, so Dorothea says 2, she can do much better. Yeah, and so Kelly is saying, so see, I have my phone, so I'm reading comments over here, right? So she's in publishing, and so they have a deep dive customer research tool that goes into detail for competitors. That's awesome. Like if you can take advantage of some of those free resources to help you get clear, that's awesome. And I will post a link when we're done to the free resource, that avatar alignment workbook for you guys, where it will walk you through kind of doing that deep dive and getting to know who your customer is. So I'm going to make a note so not to forget. Post link to the avatar. Okay. Good morning, Katie. All right, so we know demographics are important. We need to know who we're targeting. We need to know their age range, right? So it's about more than that, because we can, hi Sherry, right? So we can say that, yes, we are in this demographic of women who are between the ages, and we'll just use Sherry as an example, Tupperware, right? So women who are in the age of like 25 to 40, where they're just setting up their homes or just getting married, they're just getting their life together, right? So she's going to have a pretty clear idea of who her demographic is, right? And the same with, if you don't know, then you need to know. And you need to narrow it down. Saying that I reach all women of all ages is not going to help you get clear with your messaging. Right? So if you had to identify one thing today as we're talking about your ideal client, and you'll hear the term perfect client. I used that term, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I got like ragged on because I used the word perfect, right? But a lot of people, when they have in their head, they're looking for that perfect client. So it's okay that we're using perfect. Yes, we all know we're not perfect. We all have things that we can improve on. So it's okay if you use the word perfect when you're talking about your client. It's fine. I give you permission to say my perfect client and not your ideal client. Please, just know that. So what's one thing about your client, your ideal, your perfect client, that you can identify today? That's my hope, is when we're done, you're going to say, oh, I'm going to be clear about this, right? Good morning, Annie. I'm going to really know my client this much better because I've identified this one piece. That's my goal for today for you guys, okay? So when we're talking about the demographics, we're also thinking about the psychographics, right? The psychology behind your client. What are their values? What's important to them? What are their principles? And how do you know what their values are? Name one value You can drop in the comments. One value that you know your clients or your potential clients or your perfect client or your ideal client has. What's one value they have? So think about that for a second. What's one value? So Kelly says hers are 18 to 65. They're resilient and not risk adverse. Okay. Like, so you see, that's pretty specific, right? So when she's thinking about her messaging, she's like, all right, they're willing to kind of jump in and take a risk. So now Kelly was talking autonomy. Perfect. Yeah, that's a great value to have, right? They want that independence. They don't want to have to be reliant on other people. So research. So we talked just a few seconds, we touched on it about using free resource tools and different techniques. What are some of the ways you can go about learning more about your ideal client? How would you go about learning more? What have you already done to learn more? Because when we were wanting to know our ideal client, this is not a hands-off approach. This is not where I sit with my notebook and I'm going to start to just kind of sketch them out, right? That's a great beginning piece, but it's not going to get you to know them as well as you need to know them. So you're hearing what they're saying and you're speaking their language so they can hear you. So one of the ways that I tell my clients is I have them identify 3 of their direct competitors. Yes, competitors, because we are not alone. We are not an island in what we offer. Somebody else will do what we do, slightly different. They might look and feel a bit different. It might be even a different language, right? A different culture, but somebody else is doing something you already do. So I have my clients find 3 competitors, and then I tell them go and stalk their Facebook and Instagram accounts or their social media accounts. What are they sharing and how are people responding? So it might look like I have 2 or 3 other companies that have online communities for women. So I will often go to their Instagram account, see what they're posting and see how people are responding. What are they saying? And I want to, it's public, so yes, we're eavesdropping, but we want to learn how our potential customers are interacting already. Is there a certain word or image that catches their eye faster than others? Or more often. So, and that's really called social listening, right? So you want to kind of listen in on what are the conversations already happening out there. Because one, you want to get in on the conversation. You do not want to hijack the conversation, right? And you'll see that in other Facebook groups where it's like, don't hijack other people's posts, right? But if you can offer support, absolutely. So, yes, so right, so Kelly is saying keywords, visiting Facebook groups where you think they hang out. Absolutely, that's a great way to go about it as well, right? So, and then feedback. So I'll use, right, today, so Kelly's like, I can barely hear you, so I'm like pulling my computer super close, right? So feedback, take that into consideration. What are people saying to you now? And remember, silence is feedback. So if you're posting and there's 0 interaction, it's radio silent, that is feedback. That's telling you it's not hitting home, that you're not resonating with your target audience, right? So, and one of the things that this avatar alignment workbook that I'll share with you guys does is allow you to create this persona. So you actually, at the end of it, have a a person that's described that you can actually give a name to, right? You name them and they become real and you're talking to them, right? You really want to create that customer persona so there's that connection. Because it's easy enough to write all those demographics down and all those values and ideals down and kind of know what they're doing and what they're listening to and what they're interacting as. But if you can't pull it together as a package, then your message is definitely not going to land, right? They may hear it, but I don't think they will remember it. And remember, our messaging has to be memorable for people. So with that, understanding kind of what you know about your current potential customers, what you think and who they are, what's the one insight you've discovered recently about your perfect customer? So over the last 2 or 3 weeks, have you discovered something new? And there's a reason I'm asking this. Is there something new you've discovered about your perfect client? The reason is because good morning, Lauren, as things change in our world, and when I say world, it can be our world in our home, our community, our state, our country, globally, as things shift and change, and it's always shifting and changing, they don't like giving reviews. That's what Kelly's just learned. Okay. So, right, as things change, you need to keep tapping into and checking in with that perfect client. Do they still have the same interests? Are they still responding to the same posts and comments? Are they still having the same conversations? Because when there's change that happens, either in your environment or in their environment, then their habits will change. Their interactions will change. Their values will not change per se, but they may be shifted. They may be reordered a little, right? So sometimes, one value is higher than the other, and then something changes and then it flip-flops, right? So when I was single, my career was important. I got married, family became more important, right? My values didn't change, just the order of them changed. Yes, I was super close with my parents and my sister, and we talked every week, and that was important, but my day-to-day life, my work was important. My personal health was important. And then I got married, had kids, and now family is the most important, right? So the values won't change necessarily, but the order of them may shift. So it's important that you keep checking in on your ideal client, on how is their conversations changing, so that social listening becomes a key element to knowing how to keep your messaging on track. Make sense? Questions? See, this is where I gotta wait for everybody to catch up because of the delay. So we're going to move on to the second part, and that's kind of where we start to look at analyzing that audience behavior. We've done the social listening. We've kind of identified their values. We know their age group. We know where they live. We kind of know where they hang out online. But we need to know that the next step is really understanding what they're doing and how they're interacting. And this plays right into what Kelly was just mentioning, right? She said they, like her clients, her perfect ideal client, they don't like to give reviews. And then if you're in publishing, reviews are really important, right? It's because how other people who have the same similar interests are going to make decisions. So when we think about our audience's behavior, analytics become important. So your metrics, that interaction, right? So when we start looking at that social listening piece, what are the metrics that go along with it? How many likes? They're my bread and butter. Exactly. Yeah. So Kelly's saying they're her bread and butter. So, right, what are those social media metrics that you need to keep an eye on? The likes, the shares, the comments, the click-throughs, right? What pages on your website or what posts in your social media get the most traction? And from who? Or whom? Right? Is the same person commenting on the same type of posts? Is the same group of people commenting or clicking through your email newsletter? Or sharing your newsletter? What emails, and we actually just did this yesterday. We looked at our email metrics and kind of was analyzing what was working and what was the biggest, what email had the biggest open rate and what audience members in our email distribution list were opening the most versus clicking through. And, you know, we're starting to look at where are they dropping off. So they might open the email, but they're not clicking through, or they're clicking through, but they don't continue. So where's their drop-off point? So we started diving into that actually yesterday afternoon, because to make changes, you need to make smart changes. Because if you don't know what you don't know, then you can't make the right changes, right? You can't implement new strategies. And when we are looking at that type of information, right? If you're looking at this type of post is getting this type of interaction, and this type of post is not getting any interaction, that's a trend. What are those trends? Is it a certain visual? Is it a certain word in the opening hook statement that's getting the traction or not getting the traction? What are those trends? Start to identify the trends so you can then duplicate them and replicate them. Now, let's just say you had an email that had a super high open rate. And you say, okay, I'm going to replicate that subject line because it was the one that had the biggest open rate in the last year. If you keep using the exact same verbiage, guess what's happened to the open rate? It's going to go down because people are going to go, oh, this is not new. This is the same thing, right? So when you're looking at those trends and trying to identify, you can't duplicate specifically. You have to take it into consideration and say, okay, this is what got their attention and this is what got them to take action. So now I need to play with the verbiage so it's not exactly the same, right? Because when you have this information, when you know the trends, you know the metrics, and you can see, especially if you have a website that tracks the analytics where people come in, their customer journey within your website, and where they might jump out. When you know that information, you can start refining what you're offering people and how you're portraying it, right? Because if your data is showing that your audience loves a certain type of content or a certain product that you offer, then it's going to be important that you amplify it. So you can duplicate the content, you can duplicate the communication, but you need to be aware of how you're presenting it. It doesn't become redundant where people are going, oh, it's the same verbiage, but nothing's changing. I'm not getting what I thought I was getting, right? So you kind of want that follow through. So how many of you have actually looked at your analytics? Whether it be on your website, your product store, or your social media metrics. How many of you actually, let's just say in the last week, looked at those metrics, looked at those numbers? Oops, sorry. I hit the table. If you have just your Amazon ad metrics, okay. So Kelly, I'm going to challenge you to look at other metrics for yourself, not just your ad metrics. Just so that way you can start to get a bigger, broader picture of your audience. So if you have looked at them, so even, Kelly, with your ads metrics, what is one thing that you learned that you're surprised about? Now, Kelly already did share that, she was, she learned that her customers don't like to give reviews, right? But outside of that, what have you learned that surprised you about those metrics, those analytics that you've reviewed? And when you've identified that, how do you think that's going to impact what you do next? Are you going to adjust the offer? Are you going to adjust the verbiage? How are you going to meet what those metrics are telling you? And if you've identified a trend, what are you going to do with that to make and meet the trend? And you have to answer that question. That's kind of a deeper question. You've got to think about. That's not going to be, some of you may be able to kind of right off the top of your head know what you'll do, but I want you to think about that. When you learn something new about your audience, how are you going to use that piece of information to make a different decision moving forward? Or do you? Or do you think it's an anomaly? Is it an outlier, as they say? A one-up? So the third piece is when we have our ideal client identified and that client persona put together, and we've analyzed the data, we need to then personalize it so we make that connection, right? Because again, when we go back to that first one and knowing your audience, we have to speak their language. And every industry has its own language. So for you, your language is going to be A, their language might be B. You've got to make sure you have an interpreter where you are connecting and speaking their language. So I'm just going to go back. So Kelly says she gets clicks on her books, but not many sales. I raised my bids and changed my book description. I might have to change my book cover. Yes. So the key when you start to make those changes is to change one thing at a time. If you change too many things, you're not going to be able to identify if that one change was what made a difference. So if you happen to change, two or three things at once, you can't extrapolate that the cover was the difference, using Kelly's example, right? Or the description was the difference. So give yourself the time to kind of identify those different pieces that can be changed and change one thing at a time and see what happens. Or do an A-B split, right? So Kelly, thinking about your ads, you could be doing like an A-B split. So ad A has a different cover, ad B has a different description with the same older cover, right? So that's where those A-B splits can really come in handy. You can like immediately see which change made the biggest impact. And again, this then circles right into this, personalization, that connection, right? So using Kelly's example, if her book cover is what is changed and what all of a sudden now the new cover is what's making the connection because people see themselves in it more or it intrigues them more, right? Then you're going to say, okay, so it was that visual, right? So when we're talking about that personalization and we're looking at how do we create a message that connects with our audience really wants to feel like it's tailor-made to them. Like we're speaking directly to them, like a one-on-one conversation. And that can be really hard to do. So what do we need to do, right? Craft a message that resonates. And we do that by using those insights that we did and talked about in part 2, right? By crafting a message that speaks directly to your audience needs, then they're going to be like, oh, she's like in my head. I get it. She gets me. This is something that I want. This is something I need, right? And don't underestimate the power of storytelling. We all love a good story. And then segmenting, right? And so we touched on the whole A-B, when we were talking about Kelly's wanting to change her book cover and her description, right? That segmenting and the A-B testing is really important. So you can segment it based on behavior by the persona of those individuals, right? So personalized email campaigns where you're able to segment your audience into their past interactions. You can customize your offer based on what you know about them. You can target the social media posts. And this isn't about boosting your post or running ads. This is about creating certain posts that you know are speaking to a very specific niche within your own audience. Right? And the more they see things that speak to them directly, the more that they not just see themselves in it, but they trust you. So if you had to look at your audience and think about what you offer, your services or products, and say, okay, if I wanted to segment my audience down and target just one portion of them, what would be a personalized message that you could send them tomorrow or the next day that really reflects who they are and what they need? If you think about the demographic of your audience, and if we use, from ages 20 to 50, say that 30-year span, if you wanted to segment it down and you want to just hit the 30-year-olds, what messaging could you use that speaks directly to those 30-year-olds? Because it's going to be slightly different than if you were targeting the 50s, right? So those are the 3 elements. When we're creating a message and connecting with our audience and wanting it to not just land, but to stick, to invoke an action and get a response, knowing that you're diving into who they are and more than just their basic demographic is important, right? And then understanding and decoding their behavior and how they interact with your content, whether it be your website, your ads, your social media, right? And then using that data and creating a personalized message that connects with them. So questions, this is where I want to open up for questions now. And if you're watching the replay, you can post questions. And if I don't respond timely, and what I mean by timely, if I do not respond to your commented questions within 24 hours, please send me a DM and say, Karen, can you respond to my question, please? Because sometimes Facebook doesn't let me know there's been comments in other videos. So I always encourage you guys to reach out. Okay, so while I'm waiting for this to catch up, two things. So next Thursday, the 13th at 12:30 is the next Savvy in the Square. That's our virtual networking event that happens every month. It's under the events. You can click the link to register. Depending upon how many people will break out into rooms and then come back and re-break out. So we can really kind of get that personal interaction with other people. And then the first workshop is on February 27th, and we're going to talk about stress and really reducing that stress and how to manage stress. I think with so many things happening right now around the US and internationally, really, that stress is going to really hit a lot of us, and I wanted to start there. So I don't think I don't think I did an event within the Facebook group, but it is over in the Women's Resource community, but I'll drop a link in that as well to register. I want to make sure you guys are set up for success this year to be able to manage your stress properly. Because what's going on is going to hit all of us different. And this isn't about being political, this is about being real with where we're at as individuals and as business owners, and making sure that you set yourself up for success. And managing our stress is the first thing we need to be able to do. So, okay, so no questions. All right, so I am going to go and grab that link for the avatar alignment worksheet. And actually, I will put in the metrics cheat sheet as well, that link for you guys to be able to go and grab that. And I think that will be helpful. So those are two free resources I'll drop in the comments here in a few minutes. So if you have no questions, I am grateful that you're here and that you hung out with me for the last 45 minutes. I appreciate it. Thank you for your feedback, Kelly, about my voice. I got to figure that out. I wonder if I have my earbuds in the next time, if it'll pick up my voice better. I'll have to try that next week. So I wish you all a beautiful day. I know if you're here, I'm just looking outside, it's not a bad day today, but I know here in mid-Michigan, we are supposed to be getting some crazy weather tomorrow night. So if that is you, stay safe, stay warm. And if you have not done an intro post in the Facebook group, in this group yet, please do. Just use the hashtag intro post. Tell us about you, tell us about your business, tell us what you're looking to get out of the group. And yeah, just make sure you introduce yourself and lean into the group, okay? So I'll drop those links and reach out if you need any support. We're here for you. And I wish you all a beautiful day. Thanks. See, now that I'm on the live within the Facebook, now I got to figure out how to hang up from the live. Because, you know, that's just that. This is what I do. This is how I do it. That's where my Rebecca lives. Oh, excellent. Okay. Yeah, so funny enough, right? This is hilarious. I have no idea. Oh, there it is. I hit it. I hit the live button. End live. All right. Well, Kelly, tell your Aunt Rebecca that I wish her well and to stay safe. And I will wait to see you guys next Tuesday. Thanks for joining. Have a great day.